the night sky burned red. A private plane spiraled out of control before crashing into the dark forest just beyond the Miller farm. While others froze in fear, one man, Jake Miller, a single father with calloused hands and a heart of gold, grabbed his flashlight and ran straight toward the fire. He didn't know who was inside. He didn't care if it was a stranger or a celebrity. All he knew was someone needed help. But what Jake didn't know was that the woman trapped in that wreckage wasn't just anyone, she was one of the richest women in the country. And by saving her life, he was about to change his own in ways he never imagined. Hey everyone, welcome back to your channel name, the place where we share powerful, emotional stories that remind us of the beauty of kindness, courage, and humanity. If you enjoy stories that warm your heart and make you believe in good people again, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. It really helps us bring you more uplifting stories like this one. Now, let's dive into today's story. Jake Miller lived a simple life in a small Colorado town. He worked as a mechanic in a local garage, fixing engines by day and taking care of his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, by night. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their little girl alone. They didn't have much, just a small, creaky house with a leaky roof and a yard full of old tools, but they had love. Every night before bed, Jake would tuck Lily in and say, "Sweetheart, the world's not always fair, but kindness always finds its way home." That saying became their family motto. It was a cold winter night when Jake heard it, a thunderous roar overhead followed by a boom that shook the ground. He ran outside and saw smoke rising over the forest ridge. A small plane had gone down. Without thinking twice, Jake grabbed his jacket, flashlight, and first aid kit. "Stay here, baby," he told Lily. "I'll be right back." He drove his old pickup through the muddy trail until he couldn't go any further, then ran the rest of the way on foot. The air was thick with the smell of fuel and burning metal. Through the smoke, he could hear a faint voice crying for help. Jake pushed through the wreckage, his boots sinking into the mud. Flames crackled around him, but he didn't stop. "Hey! Hold on, I'm coming," he shouted. Inside what was left of the fuselage, he found her, a woman pinned under a twisted metal seat, unconscious and bleeding. He checked her pulse, it was weak but steady. "You're gonna be okay," he whispered. He used a wrench from his belt to pry the seat loose and pulled her free, carrying her in his arms as the fire spread behind them. Rain began to fall, hissing against the flames, as Jake stumbled back toward his truck. When he finally reached the road, his arms were shaking. The woman's face was pale, her breathing shallow. He wrapped his jacket around her and called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, Jake was soaked, covered in soot, and barely standing. But he refused to leave until he knew she was safe. The next morning, Jake woke up in a hospital waiting chair. A nurse had insisted he stay overnight for observation, his hands were burned, and he had a cracked rib. But all he could think about was the woman he rescued. "Sir," the nurse said, "she's awake now. She's asking for you." Jake hesitated before walking into her room. She looked fragile but alert, her arm wrapped in bandages, her blonde hair tangled from the crash. When she saw him, she smiled softly. "You're the man who pulled me out," she said in a hoarse voice. Jake nodded. "Guess so. You gave me quite a scare back there." She chuckled weakly. "I don't even know your name." "Jake. Jake Miller." "Thank you, Jake," she whispered. "I owe you my life." He shrugged. "You don't owe me anything, ma'am. I just did what anyone would have done." But deep down, he knew most people wouldn't have run into that fire. The woman introduced herself as Evelyn Chase. The name meant nothing to Jake, but the nurse's wide eyes told him otherwise. Evelyn Chase was one of the most powerful businesswomen in America, the CEO of Chase Tech, a global technology empire. Jake just nodded politely. "Well, Miss Chase, I'm glad you're all right." When he left the hospital, he didn't expect to see her again. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, Jake was back home fixing an old Chevy when a sleek black car pulled into his driveway. Out stepped Evelyn Chase, dressed in casual jeans and a soft sweater, looking nothing like a billionaire. Lily peeked from the window. "Daddy, is that a movie star?" Jake laughed. No, sweetheart. That's the lady from the plane. Evelyn smiled as she walked up. I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to thank you properly. You didn't have to drive all the way out here, Jake said. Maybe not, she replied, glancing around at the small house, but I wanted to see the man who ran into fire for a stranger. Inside, Lily offered her a cookie, and Evelyn knelt down to take it, smiling warmly. Thank you, sweetheart. She gets her kindness from her mom, Jake said quietly. They sat at the kitchen table, talking about life, loss, and second chances. Evelyn admitted that she had spent years chasing success but felt empty inside. All the money in the world doesn't mean much when you realize you don't have anyone to call family, she said softly. When she left that day, she promised to stay in touch. But Jake didn't expect what happened next. The next morning, Jake heard a knock on the door. A man in a dark suit handed him an envelope. Mr. Miller, the man said, this is from Miss Chase. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Jake. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, the power of simple kindness. You didn't know who I was, yet you risked everything to save me. I can never repay that, but I want to try. I've arranged for a complete renovation of your home, a college fund for Lily, and a new auto repair shop, yours to own, free and clear. I'm calling it Miller and Daughter Repairs. You gave me my life back. Let me give you a new one in return. Evelyn. Jake read the letter 3 times before the tears came. Lily ran up to him, worried. Daddy, why are you crying? He hugged her tight. Because kindness really does come back, baby girl. Weeks later, Jake stood in front of his brand new auto shop, Miller and Daughter Repairs, with Lily by his side. The place gleamed with fresh paint and brand new tools. The townspeople gathered around for the opening, clapping as Jake cut the ribbon. Evelyn arrived quietly, standing in the crowd with a smile. When their eyes met, she nodded, as if to say, you earned this. Later that day, she walked up to him. Looks like business is booming, she said. Jake grinned. Couldn't have done it without you. Evelyn shook her head. You could have. You just needed someone to remind you of your worth. She handed him a small box. Inside was a silver keychain engraved with one word, kindness. Jake looked at it, then at her. You know, he said, you didn't just survive that crash, you got a fresh start. Evelyn smiled softly. So did you. They stood outside the shop as the sun set, the sign shining proudly above them. Lily ran out, laughing, her pigtails bouncing in the wind. And in that moment, everything felt right. That night, as Jake tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, Daddy, do you think the nice lady will visit again? He smiled. Maybe. But even if she doesn't, she's proof that kindness always finds its way back. Outside, the Colorado sky stretched white and clear, stars twinkling where smoke once filled the air. Somewhere out there, Evelyn looked up at the same sky, silently thanking the man who had taught her what no amount of money ever could, that real wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we give. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness can crash through the darkness and change everything. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still matters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to your channel name for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. Because in a world that often feels cold, kindness is still the light that never burns out.